quick way. We'll limit someone gone. Beans. So this is meat. I'm going to show how I'm doing my cured meat. So the meat's below the surface. There's a little saucer plate under there and a bowl for a little extra weight. And what's going on in here is 20 pounds of beef. I'm going to tell you real quick what I'm doing and how I do it. Step by step, real quick. Meat, I want to cure it, and this is a wet cure. I'd like to add 3% minimum of salt per pound of weight, per pound of whatever you're curing. There's your base. It's hard to do that in a dry cure. With a wet cure, the salt's dissolved. So it's easy to use the minimum amount of salt needed, which is, cost effective, and it allows you to salt your food later rather than having to try to desalt your food. So the salt is 20 pounds of meat. That's 3% is 0.6 of a pound. And 1 1/4 cup is right about there. 1.5 cups of salt is more like 1.75. So, 1 1/3, you're plenty salt for 20 pounds of meat. But by weight, 3%. So, and I'm using wine this time because I haven't used wine to cure meat. My parents threw me out in my junior year of high school. And boy, I'm smelling it. Brings back my childhood memories. And I just didn't cure meat with wine anymore. I used more other methods. This is the old school I learned. So the meat's in there. It's called a brine. I'm using Burgundy cheap ass Burgundy wine. I got a little bit of vinegar in there. 3/4 of a cup apple cider vinegar. That's way overkill for knocking out nasty bugs. Then I also have a ton of nitrogen that I get. I get a lot of nitrogen. There's different places to get it in natural plants. I can tell you right now, whey from raw milk, goat milk. I don't trust the other milk because you'd have to look into the A2 casein versus A1 and what's happened to modern. Anyway, so raw milk, and then I separate it and take out the whey. And then that way, I actually fermented beets. Beets, extremely high in nitrogen. You could just ferment some beets for a couple weeks and get plenty of nitrogen, out of that. The regular fermentation. But I fermented the beets in the whey. So that's what's in there. Wine, vinegar, 3% of the meat's volume by weight in salt. Not volume, 3% of the meat's weight. Wine, vinegar, and a beet whey ferment. And there's 20 pounds of sliced bottom round in there. I like it fatty and it's a little bit more chewy, but it's also cheaper. I like it. So that's what's in there. Now I'm going to show you what's going on next. So what we got up here is cured meat. Some of it's, pretty close. And you can see all the spices falling down. You catch those because spices are expensive. When they run off, you just sweep them together, and then I don't mix them in my spice mix. I keep them on the side, so I have fresh spice mix, but this is recycle, so go straight on right away with the next batch. So that stuff's going to come out of that liquid I just showed you. And then I'm going to put it in a colander, pat dry it, and I'm going to rub it in my spice mix. I'll tell you, my holiday spice mix is the main thing that's in this. So allspice, a lot of fresh ground cloves, allspice, cinnamon. You could do some nutmeg, Sometimes I do. And then I've got paprika, adds a lot of color. The beets help with making it just a juicy color. And they're just hung. I've laced these with a loop, and I've trussed these up with a truss, and badly tied truss. A bit embarrassing. There's a truss back there. The trusses are on pork loin. So you hang these, and technically they tell you hang them till they're ready. But I like my meat raw, so I just eat it raw. I don't even wait for it to get too dry. You know, it takes a long time to dry this way, and it just preserves it. So it's not kept in a solid state like canned food. This is a living thing that's full of nutrition and uncooked. And we've added more living nutrition to it with the ferments. The flavors are developing. You can slice it off whenever you want to, right afterwards. You don't even have to dry it and start cooking it. The point is, once you have it in that brine, it keeps. You can leave it in the brine for as long as you want. The flavor will intensify. I'm going to brine that, 12 hours fine. For that thick of meat, 12 hours fine. It's 2 inches thick. It's sliced 2 inches thick across the grain. And these are pork loin. This here, the trussed ones are pork loin. And the reason I'm running this fan, you don't need to, but it helps dry them, is because I'm going to tell you about a problem you could have right now. These were out in my garage. And they were in a dehydrator, and I was dehydrating them with a few pieces of the beef. And then there was an electrical issue, and the electricians killed the power to the garage. The dehydrator is, and I was like, I'll leave them and come out and get them the next day. Well, I didn't come out for 4 days. And the power's still off out there. And because of that, they picked up ambient moisture. Every time it got foggy or it cooled down, they got condensated on it and they got wetter. They were really dry. The fan's going to help dry them. And you don't want to dry too fast. I'm going to tell you about that right now. But these were, I'll tell you right after this, these were damp. So I had to bring them in, and they're not a problem. Even if they had mold on them, it wouldn't have been a problem. Especially, your mold. The fan's helping dry them. And here's why you don't want to dry them too fast anyway. There's a thing called a pelican. Pelican? If you dry it too fast, it creates a skin around the meat it's going to get a nice dry crust around the edge anyway. And when it's still rare and you slice it, you'll have an edge that looks like a well-done steak with a rare in the middle. So, if it dries too quickly, then the internal moisture can't continue to drop. And you want it to be able to continue to drop. But there it is, and it comes out, I love the flavor. You can flavor it how you want it. It's fabulous, and it's a way to store your meat. No refrigeration. So, and then in that brine, so if you have a problem with moisture, say you're out in the wild or you're living in a shed, and you're like, oh, my place gets damp, and it'll ruin my dried meat, you can leave the meat in the brine as long as you want, and this brine don't freeze. So the meat can stay in the brine. You can buy 100 pounds of meat and pack it in 5 4-gallon buckets with brine and eat at it as you will. Hang some to dry when the weather's right to dry it, when in your rafters or whatever. But the brine will protect it. So saving meat without a fridge and making it better. And flavor, amazing. Uli can eat a box. Uli mitsawangan could eat. Wala makungan, wawasol megawadich. Mindo zigla si wumbi marahundo. Idam.